Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome to a Monday after a brutal, unbearable Steeler game last night. We're starting a minute or two late because Stephen and I were doing what all Pittsburghers are doing today at the workplace, which is talking about that game. I'm not a big football fan anymore because of the damage that is being done to those beautiful young athletes. For instance, Mr. Brown, unbelievable. Antonio Brown now. Ryan Shazier there. Who knows what shape he's in. I mean, it's a brutal game that's probably not going to be able to continue in many ways. But it's an exciting game. It's a great game if you don't look at the human toll. My God, was that a great game? And I have to tell you, in my heart, I know the Steelers won it. Really unbelievable. Really unbelievable. So, I mean, that was such a great game that my mother, I always preface it by saying my 95-year-old mother called me immediately after the game. My phone rang, and I thought, who's this calling to commiserate? And it was my mom. She's not a Steeler fan. She's not a New England fan. But she called because she had watched that game, and she said, what an incredible game. She said, I'm so sorry. She felt the Steelers won that game, too. God dang it. Anyway, it's only a game that kills people. I'm very ambivalent, as you can tell. All right, so whatever, that's that. And it is only a game that kills people. Let me do something very daring here. Okay? Stand back. This could be the end of everything. All right, here we go. Stephen, yeah, duck and cover. Here we go. Vulnerable. Entitlement. Diversity. Oh, I don't know if I can do this one. Transgender. Oh, I can't. Fetus. Evidence-based. And science-based. Wow. Have they come for me? No, I guess not. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have just uttered the 7 words that the poor souls who work at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention would that somebody work on the disease of creeping fascism that is permeating the land. I was trying to remember, actually. Of course it's like Carlin. How did they come up with 7? That is so funny. You would think that some of them would have said, well, while we're doing this and banning these words, maybe we should come up with either maybe 1 or 2 more just so it won't be, 7 words like Carlin's 7 words, I have a friend who has a large metal sculpture. It's huge. I mean, it's huge. It covers a wall. And it is an artistic rendering of Carlin's 7 words, which aren't what you necessarily think they are. You want to find them for me? Forgive me, but I'll say those 2 because, words are words. I know motherfucker is one. I think the C word, that's a word I truly do hate. 4-letter word beginning with C. I think that's one of them. I hate that word. Mostly because I think it sounds vile. So, anyway, there you have it. I guess the head of the CDC has come out today with some absurd statement that these words are not banned. It's not true because there is a memo that was put out and suggesting even alternative phrases. For instance, instead of saying science-based, it is suggested that you say based recommendations based on science in consideration with community standards and wishes. That was their, oh my God. Think of what that means. Instead of science-based, we will say science in consideration with community standards and wishes. So in other words, when science is upsetting to us, like, I guess, climate change and evolution, if the community says, that makes me very unhappy. I don't want to think I came from an ape, and I don't want to think that my children are not going to be able to continue to live on this planet. And so then you can, sort of ameliorate science if community standards can't handle it. Oh, dear God in heaven. And did you see over at Scott Pruitt's EPA, Environmental Protection, they have hired a firm that is a firm that normally does opposition research, so digs up dirt on Democrats that Republicans are running against. Only this firm now has been tasked with ferreting out, looking through people's emails at the EPA and ferreting out ones that were, well, I guess, Democrats or didn't have particularly good feelings toward the president. You want the definition of a witch hunt? You want deja vu all over again, time travel back to the 50s and the McCarthy era? This is exactly the kind of stuff. This is unfriggin' believable. I'm going to do the 7 words. Except the C word, which I don't like. Geez, I said tits all the time. Tits is one of the words? That's absurd. I can come up with a more egregious list of 7. Here they are. Shit. Piss. So bodily functions are bad. So you got shit and piss. So bodily functions are, it's either sexual, they're all about sex, or they're all about bodily functions. How can bodily functions be? Okay, shit, piss, fuck, the C word, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. See, these are tits, apparently. And these are so objectionable, I guess. I'm really... I'm just sick of being perpetually dumbfounded. It's an awful way to be living. We have a caller. Hello.
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 Hi. I was just wondering, I noticed that the label political correctness is never used when it's a list of forbidden words coming from the right.
That's right. That's never political correctness. That's right.
That's always been mysterious to me as to how that term is always applied to the left and never to the right, when I would say that the examples are far more numerous from that side than the left.
Well, I'm probably sort of comparable now with the
Think about
the
all
campus
the things
craziness.
we're not allowed to
Yeah, no, it is.
I was leaving out the fact that I would put you in, in that camp. But if you think about the things we're not supposed to discuss, like in the United States, like that slavery might have been bad, or that unions might be a good thing, like all the things that are not, you're not even supposed to talk about them at Christmas parties. I would put those all under that label of political correctness, and most of those benefit the right, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not going to
like capitalism might not be the greatest. That's the whole of that.
Well,
you got thrown. You had to quit a TV show based on that. remember her reaction?
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. And there's tons of things on that list.
Yes.
The fact that people live better in other countries than here is a concept you're not allowed to discuss.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I remember decades ago actually trying to suggest the same, that when the conservatives started, getting on changes in words for feminist purposes. In other words, making fun of, firefighter instead of fireman and blah, 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 blah. And
the fact that they call it the Democrat Party.
Exactly. Oh, they're just vile.
I guess they just have more money to pay for public relations people to come up with this stuff?
No, they're smarter. I don't know. They're just better at it because they're also, as I've said, their shamelessness allows them to do things that liberals would be more squeamish about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like exhibiting total hypocrisy on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. But yes, thank you. This is right. So we're talking about the PC culture on the other side of things that cannot be said. Oh my gosh, guys. Let's start with something light. I guess we already did start, but let's start with something lighter. You did hear about the British surgeon, right? This guy was way up there. British liver transplant surgeon. And he was going along gangbusters until one of his patients had to have a follow-up procedure, and he was not available to perform it. So another surgeon came to the rescue and did this procedure, and in so doing, opening up this patient and looking at the patient's transplanted liver, saw that it had been essentially autographed by the surgeon who had transplanted the liver. This is a prominent British surgeon who apparently liked, when transplanting an organ, he liked to sort of laser his, I don't know if it was like a laser. I think pretty much it was like a laser. His initials into the liver. Now, the surgeon who saw these initials recognized them as the initials of the prominent British surgeon, was dumbstruck and reported it to whatever legal and ethical authorities take on such surprising things. And this surgeon has now been convicted of assault. It's not like there's a specific law that says if you're a surgeon and you're transplanting a liver, a lung, a kidney, or something into somebody, you should not autograph it, lay claim to it in some way, or brag about yourself, because that thing is now in somebody's body. On the other hand, a lot of the people who he gave new livers, who don't know whether or not their livers carry his initials have been heard to say, I don't give a damn if I've got some initials on this liver. This liver, initialed or not, saved my life. I don't know. Does it qualify as assault? It sure qualifies as despicable grandiosity and narcissism. But I really don't know. From the time I first heard about it when I was stunned to me actually recounting this story to you now, surgeons in general are often not the most lovable human beings. Having had numerous surgeries myself, they are brash. They have a certain swagger. I guess it's the kind of self-confidence bordering on self-love and adulation that maybe somebody needs in order to be comfortable slicing into the bodies of living human beings and fiddling around with their insides. I'm sure a certain level of incredible sense of self and mastery and all that stuff would have to be there, a very high opinion of self. And I think surgeons often, and it's a broad brush, I did the last surgeon I dealt with was unlike all the others. I mean, he literally stood out in that he was so not like the imperious other surgeons who've had at me. And I actually said to him, so were you absent on the day in medical school when they taught you how to be an arrogant asshole? He knew exactly what I was talking about. He laughed somewhat uncomfortably while the intern almost doubled over. Yeah. Well, so anyway, this guy's been convicted and he ain't doing surgery. I mean, so here's a guy with that skill who now can't do it anymore. I think that might be an overreaction too. I don't know. What he did was not just ethically wrong, but criminally wrong. I can see where it's ethically wrong. I just wonder about the criminal aspect. By having the initials on their livers, first of all, none of us have seen our livers. If you had somebody else's liver in you, and the guy who put it there and saved your life stuck his initials on it, would you care? No, I would not care either. I would be a little pissed that, he was grandstanding using my liver. But if you think about it, who cares? So I've come full circle just talking about this out loud. I know that was really bad. I missed the basket by about, 5 feet? Okay. What else we got? We're just going to cruise this week. I refuse to work up a full head of indignation. I can't. And although I'm very worried that Trump is going to do something awful like Friday, right? The weekend before Christmas, when most of us aren't paying attention. That would be the time to do something awful. Most of us reporters are on vacation. People are relaxing. Nothing is really working like it usually works. And that would be a real good time for him to fire, I don't know, Rosenstein or Mueller, something like that. I have a bad feeling. And I'll be off next week. So that would mean we would all be off the consequential week, the last week of the year, when Trump may pull this kind of a stunt. Who knows? Who knows? David writes, I shattered my knee long ago, 10 big pieces of bone and 10 little pieces of bone. Wow. My surgeon held my bones in his hands and put everything back together. It's like my shoulder. I agree. And that's my good surgeon, too. He did something remarkable. Yeah, me too. My hero, says David, a great guy, but there's something sick about a person who wakes up every morning giddy about going to work and slicing someone's legs wide open. Bless them for doing it and doing it well, but there is something messed up about people like, no, there's not. You said he's your hero. You're walking because of him. But you notice there aren't a lot. Have you ever noticed how there are not a lot of female surgeons? I've never encountered one, frankly. There's got to be some. Any of you ever had a female surgeon? I think part of it's not that women can't do it. It's that maybe women, by their nature, are incapable of the kind of hubris required to see themselves as givers of life and death. I don't know. Why? Why no women? Why almost no women as surgeons? Seriously. We know they're every bit as smart. We know they're every bit as courageous. We know they're every bit as capable. And in fact, surgeons often require really good fine motor skills. Women are better at fine motor skills. I don't know. I think it might have something to do with sexism. Okay, what else we got here? We got... Now, look at that, scribbles. He's holding scribbles. Let me see. I'll try to decipher it. With hubris, DK. I what? I don't know. Oh. With hubris, IDK, I don't know. There are female reporters with hubris, you're saying.
Oh, I just meant like
reporter requires hubris. Well, okay, yeah. Well, there's plenty of female reporters. It was a bad joke. Yeah, that took a lot of time. So make sure they're better before you scribbles and ID, you know. Jesus. Okay, so how many of you really love the work of Matt Taibbi? Rolling Stone? I do. He's done a lot of really, really good work. But there is an article about him and another male reporter back in the day who were putting out an English language paper in Russia. And my God, they were vile in their misogyny. Vile beyond. I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know. So Matt Taibbi, I don't know if is Rolling Stone sticking with him. After all, these things that he wrote were a long time ago, but they literally harassed, not physically, but through ridicule and their paper, harassed a fellow journalist, female, who was in Moscow reporting for the Baltimore Sun. And she has written an article about what Taibbi and this other guy named Ames subjected her to. And it is, I mean, what is with these guys? What is with them? If you want to read it, I'm not going to, it was in the Washington Post. And I don't know how to give you the exact thing. It's in the Washington Post, and it is a brutal. It's actually the headline talks about terrorizing women correspondents in Moscow. And this is Matt Taibbi, who went on, this was 20 years ago in Moscow. So he would have been probably he was in his 20s, young, brash, male. And I guess back then, as we hear from guys now, well, what was wrong with that? Everybody did it. Guys will be guys. And so these things come back, and you see them with our new eyes. Wow. Okay, here's the other guy, not Taibbi. He said something. He wrote about how he dealt with his pregnant girlfriend when she refused to get an abortion. She wouldn't listen to reason, so he threatened to kill her. That worked. And then he went on to muse on about another pregnant acquaintance who aborted, and about his relief that that child had been aborted. And he wrote, I'm not paraphrasing anymore, he said, thank God, because that would have been a sloped head idiot instead of a dead fetus properly wallowing in the sewers. This is the kind of stuff that Taibbi and this guy put out. They made fun of her body. They made fun of her age. It is gruesome beyond belief. Not gruesome is not the right word. It is just appalling. So, what are we going to do with all these guys? What are we going to do? And I got to tell you, most are sliding by anyway. Most will slide by. Don't know. So, this tax bill, you spend some time this weekend sort of looking at it and seeing how it would affect you. Oh, jeez. It really is incredible. And the last horrific little tidbit on it is that since they were so tight on votes, how they managed to grab Corker, who had said, I'm not voting for this, because he's a deficit hawk, you understand. He was just appalled. Can't vote for it. And lo and behold, he's voting for it now. And lo and behold, at the last minute, the Republicans slipped a little item into this tax reform bill that did something that will make Bob Corker much richer. It was a little gift to people who, like Bob Corker, own certain kinds of real estate. And he's looking for quite a windfall. And lo and behold, when that got put in, Corker changed from a no to a yes. This is your Congress in action. corrupted, totally corrupted. So now that McCain has returned home and will be unable for a vote, God knows how they will ensure and assure that they've got the vote. Susan Collins could get some pretty little thing from him. Who else isn't absolutely on board? Jeff Flake, I believe. But this stinks to high heaven more than most of this kind of disgusting legislation that has been pushed through the House and Senate in the Trump era, with people voting on things they haven't read, they have no clue, just falling in line. It's dispiriting. Kurt says, with regard to your suggestion that perhaps women are incapable of the hubris required to be a surgeon, with the IDK comment, I think your young companion, that would be Stephen, meant to suggest that certain women reporters had enough hubris to be surgeons. For example, the one in the room with him. Well, you got Stephen to laugh, but he said no. That was not his intent, but yeah. Oh, I don't have the hubris to be a surgeon, I assure you. I couldn't even dissect a frog. So, Kurt, your interpretation has not, while good, has not passed muster with the author of the IDK, who's now scribbling something else indecipherable onto the whiteboard, which, like Trump at an executive order signing, he will soon hold up. Come on, hold it up. Hold it up and show it to me, who will be flummoxed by the, oh, very good writing this time. He said, I meant journalist equals surgeon with hubris. You mean in regard to hubris? You think journalists are equally hubristic?
Yes.
I think he's outing himself since he's a journalist. I don't know about that. Maybe. Look, there's probably there's plumbers with hubris. Sure. There are chefs. Think of chefs. Prima donna and hubris all in one, right? So, yeah, hubris knows no particular profession, but again, I have to say that if you're slicing open living people, I think that requires a level of self-confidence that most people do not possess. That's just my guess. Okay, what else we got? I'm sorry, guys. Is this a typical Monday show? I came upon this little item, and I found it very interesting. And it is that the current Senate that we got is the oldest Senate in American history. There has never been a Senate made up of so many codgers. And in some respects, as we have noted, like Thad Cochran, these guys are out to lunch. I mean, they're wheeled in. They have aides who like jab them in the ribs and tell them it's time to vote and how to vote. This is how old these guys are now. And it's all these the oldest of the old, who chair all the most important committees by virtue of their oldness, their seniority. So you got Orrin Hatch, 83, who, by the way, the president is saying, you got to run again, Orrin. You got to run again. If he runs again, he'll be 90 before his next term ends. You got poor John McCain, who's as good as dead. Thad Cochran is 80. McCain is 81. There has never been a Senate with this many senators 75 years of age or older. And this article goes on to talk about how some of these guys are in incredible shape and are doing well. Like, I guess, Chuck Grassley, who's 84, and he runs 4 times a week and is in good shape. But these are people who have positions that have so many perks that they are not inclined to give these positions up, even when their age does suggest it would be nice to step aside for some young blood. I mean, you've got, right now, you have votes being delayed so these guys can get out of the hospital, be wheeled in, time and time again. And there's 8 senators right now who are in their 80s. They chair, listen to the committees they chair. The Appropriations Committee, the Armed Services Committee. And McCain, who oversees the Pentagon on the Armed Services Committee as its chair, because he's so ill, and in fact dying, temporarily handed over his gavel to the young guy who's next in line, who actually is 2 years older, James Inhofe, who is 83. And Patrick Leahy, he's a Democrat. He's not 80 yet. He's 77. And this is the guy who he's probably in better shape than I am. He was reelected last year. His term will end when he is 82, so that's like young stuff in this Senate. And listen to his ritual that he does every birthday. And he does this to make sure his physical fitness is still in order and that he's still a capable guy despite the fact that the years are ticking. Every birthday, or round his birthday, he goes scuba diving. He first swims down to the depth of his new age. So 78 feet will be his next going down that far. And then he goes down to the 90-foot mark, does a somersault underwater, and then swims back to the surface. And he says that if he reaches the point where he can't do his somersault down there at 90 feet below sea level, he is not going to run again. So, I don't know. This is really, these guys won't leave. You know, who's another one who should leave and she won't? Dianne Feinstein. Feinstein or Feinstein? We don't know anymore, do we? I got you all like me, flummoxed on the Steens and Steins, don't I? Dianne Feinstein, I think. Anyway, how old's she? She's running for re-election, and I think if she wins, she'll be in her 90s in her next term. She'll be 91. you know, and look, as I said, my 95-year-old mother is still sharp as a tack, but not as sharp as she was, and doesn't have the energy she did, and I don't know. So you really got a bunch of old geezers there trading favors and slapping each other on the back and exempting themselves from all the requirements that they legislate for the rest of us. I would think that some young blood might start to perhaps change this ossified institution before it totally destroys itself. All right. Why do I feel like Bree wants me to note that the radio station, there are some radio stations in this office, in this building, FMs. There's one AM, and it has been it's the oldest station, news station in Pittsburgh. KQV, and it's going dark in 2 weeks. KQV. Because you just can't make any money. They can't make any money doing it because a news station requires people who gather news. So it's much more labor intensive than a station where a robot can play music. So it's just impossible. And it's too bad. It was sort of in terms of its editorial policies, because it was sort of SCAFE related, was always really right wing. But you hate to see, there's some good people who have worked there and are working there. And in fact, I was told about this after my show on Friday, when I took the elevator down to the lobby and bumped into PJ Maloney heading up to his studio at KQV. And he said, just between you and me, it's over. And then it turns out later in the day, everybody knew it, so it wasn't just between him and me. And, PJ said, I'm okay. I'm an old fart. I can, retire. He says, but there's people up there. And then he said, in their 50s. That's the age where you are just screwed. You're screwed if you lose your job then. Especially if it's a job in a dying industry, AM radio or news radio. And yeah, what a Christmas gift. So KQV had a hell of a run, I guess, and started in 1919. They were hoping to get to their 100th anniversary, but just couldn't do it. And KQV also infamous for employing, back when it played music, a disc jockey named Jeff Christie, I believe was the name. And that Jeff Christie turned out to be Rush Limbaugh. So Jeff Christie worked at KQV. He would have still fit in with his politics. Anyway, sad especially for the people who are going to find it mightily hard to be hired by anybody else. Just ain't going to happen. All right, so did you see the video? You know what? I could not watch the video of that poor schmo. I immediately felt sorry for his humiliation. The guy nominated to the federal bench by the bozo in chief, who literally could not answer, apparently, questions that a second-year law student would be able to answer. Totally unqualified. And it was a Republican senator who was asking him these questions. It wasn't a gotcha ambush. He was just saying, so have you ever Been in a trial? No. Civil? No. Criminal? No. Bench? No. Do you know what this is? No. Do you know what that rule is? No. I mean, I don't like people being humiliated, even if I hate them. I have no reason to hate this guy. And it's just so hard. I couldn't look. I read transcripts of what occurred. But, yeah, some professor at Georgetown said, I don't want to beat up on the guy, but wow, the questions he was being asked, I mean, they could just be answered by a law student. I feel sorry for him. His nomination has not been withdrawn. And he'll probably be on the bench for life. He's a young guy, totally ill-prepared for a life-tenured position. But his politics must be right. Okay. I want to apologize for my lack of energy. Do I not have energy? Is it you guys? I'm going to blame you. I'm just not feeling there's this cross-pollination kind of thing that goes on. And I'm not feeling it. I don't give a shit. I'm being told to tell you about a legislator in Pennsylvania who has now been accused of sexual harassment by a number of staffers and who say he touched them all the time. Now, see, I got a problem with this touch thing. I was at a party Saturday night, and I was talking to a guy, and we were in really, a pretty intense conversation, and I realized I was doing it, but I couldn't stop myself because that's how I talk. I kept sticking my hand on his forearm for emphasis. And about the third time I did it, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you feeling violated in any way?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Good, because I meant nothing by it except, so here's my next point, and here's my next point, and I don't want to get to the point where you can't touch. I'm a touchy person, okay? I touch people. I don't touch their private parts. I touch shoulders. I touch arms. And that if a guy puts his hand on your arm, and I mean, I've heard women say, he put his hand on my arm, and I'm not talking about this guy in particular. I don't know. I mean, this could be, what about upper thigh? Upper thigh is getting a little touchy. Although even then, it's a leg. Yes, it can be. Let's say you're sitting on a couch, two together, and you're talking, and I can see my hand not going onto the arm, but maybe onto the leg. I don't mean anything by it. Hey, I'm serious. And if somebody were to touch me like that or like this, I can tell a sexual touch from a, hey, listen to this touch. And maybe these women can too, and they saw it definitely as sexual. And we're supposed to believe everybody now. And they say, I'm humiliated, I felt threatened, I froze. All right. Count me as one of the women who's getting a little, again, uncomfortable with how high the bar or low the bar is being set here. I mean, this is getting nutty to me. Anyway, he's in trouble. He's running for Congress. Tom Wolfe says, get the hell out. Blah, blah, blah. Why is it only Democrats that are going? Huh? Pretty much. Why is it Democrats that are being accused all the time? What about all the Republicans? I don't know. Hello, caller. Hello.
Hello, this is Clarence.
Clarence. Help me out here. I'm just getting sick of all of this. I don't know.
I wish I could. The article that you read last week, I can't remember the woman's name.
Yeah,
Last name
Berlinski.
was
Berlinski, I think.
Yeah.
Did you read it?
Yes, I read it. Yeah, it's really good. Very well done. Yeah, there's, like you said, there were certain things I wasn't sure about that I kind of might have disagreed with if I thought about it more.
Yeah.
But my point is, I posted that on Facebook in 3 different places. On my main page, and then in 2 groups that I belong to.
Mm-hmm.
No response. 0. Nothing. Nada. Not a like, not a mad face, nothing.
Was that surprising?
Read it. I thought, it was interesting enough to get into a conversation, even for people to be ticked off at me. You know what I mean? There was nothing. I think so people are so uncomfortable with it. You know what I mean? With that point of view.
Yeah.
That they they agree with it, but they don't want to say that they agree with it. You know what I mean? They're just completely. I was surprised. I was surprised that I got like no response at all. I got like 1,000-something friends.
Well, can I ask?
Response.
Yeah, Stephen, did what response? I posted it on my Facebook page. Did we get any response to it? No? A comment and a couple likes. I got. But
yeah.
I first of all, are you sure people? It was long. People don't want to sit down and read something that long.
I post a lot of long stuff.
Okay.
I post a lot of long stuff, and I usually get some kind of response. Because I even posted that it was long. Yeah, I mean it's long. You don't have to read it in one sitting. What's that now? Like 5 days or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like 0 response, and I was absolutely surprised.
Well, and I thought it was brilliantly done, and she's a really good writer, and it was a definitely contrarian female view, which I pretty much agreed with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm almost, I don't want to say joking about it, but I was and let me toot my own horn, like helping wrap presents for Toys for Tots on Thursday. Mm-hmm. And the woman who convinced me to go, one of those touchy-feely women, as we were leaving, this little boy, probably about 10, and she pitched his little butt. How you doing there, Joseph? And I said, sexual harassment. Be careful.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of thing you just don't know. She thought I was serious. I said, I'm kidding. I said, but those are the things. Those are the little things that you got to be that people are getting leery about.
Well, I've told you. I mean, this is a long time ago, but I was volunteered to at my son's grade school, and I was in the cafeteria overseeing lunch. Man, I did that once and never again. Overseeing lunch, and one little guy was definitely causing a bit of a ruckus. And I went up to him and I put my hand on his shoulder and said something like, hey, like, cut it out, blah, blah, blah. And man, a teacher comes running over to me and saying, you can't touch him like that. You can't touch him. Don't touch him. And I'm thinking, good God, you can't. I didn't yank him up and slug him. I stuck my hand on his shoulder. So way back then, there was already this thing that you can't touch a child to get their attention. I wasn't grabbing him. I was not causing him any pain. I am, and that's what we're going to be like now in every situation. We will not touch each other.
Well, from my point of view, that's like a good thing. But they're making really human-like robots now. So
that's what I'm saying. This absolutely fits in to the roboticization or whatever of us. That first they put us in a situation where we are unlikely to touch each other. And, with a robot, you can touch them wherever you want and they won't sue you.
That's true.
We're all going to have robot lovers soon, I suppose. Really?
Well, I wonder what happens if you touch somebody else's robot, though.
Oh.
It's like that's possessions. I don't know. Oh, well.
Oh, you know what?
I can't help you on this whole thing.
I know you can't help, and I can't either, because it's complicated. And as soon as you inject complexity into it, people shut up. They don't know which way to go, I suppose. Because that's odd. You were struck by...
Because I had mentioned when... Go ahead, sorry.
No.
No, a while ago, when the whole thing came out about Al Franken.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know. Al Franken doesn't seem like one of these guys on one of these pages, these groups I belong.
Right.
And man, this woman yelled at me like I was, and I'm like, I said, he just doesn't seem. I said, I don't know if he is. He just doesn't seem. Based on what he did, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where he's getting a picture taken with somebody and he accidentally touched her butt or something. That's how I saw it, right? But I thought this woman, all of a sudden I was a misogynist and I hated women and blah, 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 blah. It was crazy. Then and it's a group that a lot of people know me, and she got burned. But so when I posted that other thing, I thought I'd get some kind of reaction to it, but there was zero.
Well,
zero reaction.
Maybe it's just a little too eggheady, just requires...
And I think that's a big problem with a lot of stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it requires too much effort it makes you think too hard. And I don't think people want to.
Yeah. Man, you're hitting like something I've been talking about for a while now, that people don't want to think. They either want to be told to do, how to feel, or what to think, or just follow the trends, the zeitgeist, and all this kind of good stuff.
Right. I think that's true. And I know I have my point where I think, oh, my head hurts. I really can't do this. And, often, like my brother's books are like that. I can read the first chapter, and I think they're brilliant, and then he goes off on these tangents, and I think, my head hurts. I can't follow this. I mean, I could, but I lose interest because it's hard.
He writes for academics, right? He doesn't really write
he writes for academics, right. It's like little group.
Yeah, those are always hard.
Yeah, talking to each other.
I try to read books like that. I wait for it. Did he ever do a lecture? I mean, I looked him up.
Yeah,
I can't read their books, the academics, I go on YouTube and watch their lectures.
Exactly, because, he lectures all over the world. So, his lectures are maybe more accessible. But, hey, thank you, Clarence. An interesting little tidbit there. Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Bye. And Kurt writes, and I guess we'll end on this. I am aghast by your invitation to cross-pollinate with your entire audience. I know, but I came of age in the 60s, and we were into just about anything. Oh. Kurt says, on the other hand, it is innovative. Touching is not required for pollination. Well, yeah, it kind of is, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, okay, a little bee is in the flower, and the little hairs on his legs and on his face and all over are picking up the pollen. That would require the bee, touching the pollen, and then it could all be done by the wind. It could, but it's not all done by the wind. You're right. It can be done by the wind. But little bees, they touch stuff and collect pollen as they're doing it. I mean, just as a side product of what they're up to. Anyway. I don't know. I am so... Oh, God. Someone get me out of here. I think I'm getting myself out of here. Okay, that's it. Not one of my stellar performances. Sorry. And I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe my sister will be able to up the game a little bit here. Okay? Have a good one. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.